Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you me actually saying nice things about Warrior Bioform Onslaught. Now, I'll be honest, I've been a certified T1, D1, A1 hater of this detachment for a while. I don't rate it very high usually. However, the reason I'm back around to it is for a couple of things. First, yeah, I've been looking at other armies Grotmist detachments in the sense of like, well, the codex came out and things changed in the game. Is there anything here now? So it's only fair that I circle back to mine. Now, the other thing is that there's been a couple of changes for us that might help out Warrior Bioform Onslaught. Now, full disclosure, I still don't think that it's going to automatically jump to being the best, but I no longer think that it will be the worst. I think that there's pieces now in play for Warrior Bioform Onslaught that uh, make it sustainable, more or less, especially with the state of the game. So the other thing I've definitely rambled on a lot about over here is that it is dangerous for Tyranids right now. The things that we want to take are getting hit by things that are hitting us, not necessarily like just straight up nerfs. Now, that hasn't been too kind to us either. The Hive Tyrant change is looking like it's affecting us a bit. Now, it could just be a matter of getting used to less command points, so we'll see with that. But I've said it enough times, however, just a refresher. Death Guard, looking strong. Imperial Knights, looking strong. Forge Fiends, on a rampage, so damage 3 weapons, looking strong. Blast, damage 3. And I gotta admit, looking at the new mission pack, I saw that Cole the Horde got changed, and my initial reaction was, "Damn, Warriors got hit again." That's how much. I know. I gotta stop at some point, but that's me on this edition. However, there are good things to worry about for Onslaught that I think might actually have play now. Starting first with the detachment rule. Tyranid warriors, see below, and winged Tyranid prime units from your army have a 5-up invuln save. Now, I'm not very high up on the Zoe's 4-up invuln. Why would a 5-up invuln be better? It's better when you have a lot of it, right? And the things that it can go on. Winged Tyranid prime, meaning that your unit of gargoyles attached to it, yeah, I say that you could do that in Synaptic Nexus already during the turn of Synapse. However, if it needs to be a shoot and scoot to block up something like Forge Fiends, tie them up, or Imperial Knights, just clog them up, a 5-up invuln for a bunch of little shits, yes, it is an expensive package. Good golly, that hurt. But it is a package that, given what the rest of your army wants to do and worry about for Onslaught, might be worth it as you either stage into the board for counterattacks or just exist, right? The other thing about Warrior Battle for Onslaught is that your warriors get OC3. So if you can't beat them and you can't join them, out OC them, right? If a squad of Death Shroud are on the point, if a big knight is on the point, guess what? Just put more fucking points than they have on there, and you got that while you slowly beat their ass. So I do think that, funny enough, Warrior Battle for Onslaught might actually have play for the things that we want to see right now. And initially, my thoughts on the build for Warrior Battle for Onslaught, if I was going down this road, included essentially looking like old school Vanguard Onslaught. A lot of Broodlord Gene Stealers because of devastating wounds, and then Warriors, right? That's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't think that's necessarily needed the more I thought about it. I don't think you need to go that far, and I don't think that you just can do this build in Synaptic Nexus like I would typically say, right? Now, the I I'm not even going to share a build because I'm not a Warrior Battle for Onslaught person. The one that I give you, just don't take my word on that one. But I am at least able to give props where props are due, and a time that I think that they might be needed, right? Because as somebody that likes the monsters out of Tyranids a little bit more than I do with the infantry and the small little guys, I it's hard right now because everything is getting shot for the monster end because everybody's like, well, I gotta be ready to kill a knight, and I have to be ready to at least out OC or jam up a knight. So that works on our monsters too for the most part. Now, Crusher Stampede doesn't work as like the jamming because you can move through them, but uh, the rest still fucking hurt. So past that, the enhancements, the only one that I want to really address is Elevated Might right now. 30 points is still very steep, and I'm not very loving of it, but I think the fact that it can go on a Tyranid model only, cough cough, we'll come back to that. The Bears unit is eligible to declare charge in a turn to which it advances. I think that it might have a thing now. But the stratagems, the other thing about why I didn't just say, alright, Vanguard Onslaught, even though I'm debating making that video again, or I shouldn't say again, I made a Vanguard Onslaught video pretty much focusing with the hyper adapted Raveners. But I do think I want to circle back to Vanguard Onslaught in some time because maybe I've drank the punch on that. But the stratagems for Warrior Bioform Onslaught sets it apart when I come to that build I was thinking about, either Maliceptors or Broodlord Gene Stealers being the first line to get your warriors up. The stratagems do make the difference. You get reroll wound rolls of 1 if you're Tyranid Warrior, hit roll of 1 as well. Yes, I think that it's kind of goofy that that's how it is, but it is to say that at least now you can pick in combat the option to reroll your save rolls of 1, and then have synaptic amplification as a fallback. However, you do still have twin links, so that's also still goofy. I think that synaptic amplification still has its issues, but for everybody else, you can get reroll wound rolls of 1, and you can still bring exocrines for ranged reroll hit rolls of 1. Cool. Synaptic micronodes, this is another thing that I do think is important. So Chaos Knights have a big bad stratagem that lets you sticky, and I forget which of the detachments or even the name of it right now. I think it's either way. I'm not even going to shoot because I might just be wrong and just send you in the wrong place. Either way, Chaos Knights have a stratagem that lets you sticky it and leave 5 OC on it. So if you can put 2 warriors on it for 6 OC and then stick it your damn self, they'll be. You're probably hard countering that in a way. It's a bit annoying. And also, the other thing about this and to the Knights in general, except for Quest or Forge Pack, which I doubt we'll see increasingly often, is that they're Titanic. So they can't Overwatch. Now, the little ones could, I guess, if you really want to go there. They're probably not going to fucking do that. Helverins, maybe, but I doubt it, right? I doubt it. So getting to places is going to be a little bit safer in the fact that, well, you have to watch out for less Overwatch if people aren't taking as much Overwatching capable units. So there's that. Then spontaneous hypercorrosion. You have your shooting phase or the fight phase. This is where some things might come into play. So a Tyranid unit, we already know why that's good. +2 to strength for range characteristic of models in your unit, or +1 to strength for melee weapons equipped by Tyranid warriors and Winged Tyranid Prime. So this will take them to strength 7 for the warriors and melee, and that means that you're wounding most of the game, or the big game, I should say. You're going to be able to do it on 5s. And if that's not good enough, we've seen what it can do for our hyper adapted Raveners. Cough, we will be coming back to them later. So, the ability to put a lot of saves on some of these units on at least 5s and getting up to strength 7 gives you, for some Death Guard units, wounding on 4s, right? Now, of course, it's better for the rest of the game to be wounding on 3s for all that breakpoint. But instead of having to wound Death Guard on 5, you're doing it on 4. And on Knights instead of 6, well, I guess they changed their toughness, but one of the big knights like the Knight Castellan, or hell, a great unclean one, right? While we're talking about Death Guard, I know people aren't taking Taliban summoners, but just saying. Um, a, a Guo that is now effectively toughness 13, instead of winning that on 6s, winning that on 5s with a bunch of saves, might actually be worth it. Then you have Parasitic Payload. You can strip cover using ranged Tyranid warriors. They also get ignore cover. So that's cute. Don't think you'll need it too much as of late, but it is still nice to have. Now, Restorative Impulse. I talk about how I like in Assimilation Swarm. You can just bloop, welcome back. You can do it for command point here. Admittedly, I don't love that it's for command point, but you can have some cheeky little things about, hey, if you only had one warrior stay alive on the point, again, going back to that, well, if they make sure that your unit has, only one Tyranid warrior left in it, and they left off of the objective that only has now 5 OC on it, if you regen a warrior on it, guess what? You have 6. So, you beat that out. That's pretty cool. And then finally, Synaptic Shield. This is also one that now I think does get better because your opponent's shooting phase when Tyranid's warrior unit from your army that was selected as a target of an attack, da 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 da. If it is a Tyranids warrior unit, select up to one Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked within 6 inches of it until the end of the phase. Each time a ranged attack targets one of those units, if the strength characteristic of this great strength rate and toughness -1 to 1. Got it, right? Now, I think you have a reason to bring more Endless Multitude. That was the other thing that I've been trying to work through with the current state of the game, is, well, if I have to take less monsters, I don't have to, but if the smart thing would be to take less monsters because they're going to get blown off with meltas and shit anyway, um, maybe you take more of the little guys. And where do you take them, right? If you take them in Assimilation Swarm, right now, I think I definitely said that I'm putting it lower than where I previously ranked it, like it was the best, in my opinion. But now with the Psychophage change, there's less survivability in that detachment, so less things can stay to get healed, right? So going to that end is like, alright, there. Synaptic Nexus once per turn, but for a command point, you put a 5, and it's like, whatever. An Invasion Fleet, same issue with um, no, same issue in the general sense of the fact that, well, it's harder for things to stay alive enough for the 5 of Field and Pain to really matter. So, instead of just playing Invasion Fleet, I do think that there is now a reason to bring more tiny guys, and for at least the flavor of it, if you have a bunch of tiny shits, right? Going back to, what do you take to be the first line so your warriors can get there? Because, I will still remind you, they're pretty slow, right? And again, you could be doing Vanguard Onslaught, but if you do Vanguard Onslaught, I would say just drop the Warriors, right? Just don't take them and take the Hyper Adaptive Raveners instead. Um, so, Advance and Charge, all these things. What's a thing that has Advance and Charge and can get up there? We'll talk about all these things. But yeah, I think that Warrior Bioform Onslaught weirdly has play. More than it ever has, if I'm being honest. And it's time to acknowledge it begrudgingly. But going over what we have, the Warriors themselves going up to having T5 for upstate, but a 5 up in wound and 3 wounds. If you have the Warriors in your collection, now might be a good time to try this. If you don't, I do not recommend spending that much money on Warriors just to play one detachment, but hey, you do you if you would like. The melee warriors are still the better ones of the two. Ranged warriors, you might want to take a couple of them, and this is the other good thing that I did have to admit was an oversight on my part. For 65 points, you do get 3 models that now have a 5 up invuln, 3 wounds, and have at least gun, right? It's not a good gun, but they at least have it. And then they do have at least melee, alright? So, I could spend, traditionally, 40 points to drop a Pyrovore somewhere, do something, and then have a D6 plus 1 Flamer 611. Ignores cover. In here, I don't feel as bad as just not taking that at all, because it's now 3 models, so that's at least 9 wounds that your opponent has to get through, 5 of invuln, and you get a lot of benefits in Warrior Bioform Onslaught for the ranged warriors. That might be helpful here. And again, you don't have to go too far on it because you're probably looking at more of a melee intensive build for Warrior Bioform Onslaught still. However, it will be nice that you can strip cover from some units that might need that cover stripped, right? So, ranged warriors, 65 points for a 3 model unit to possibly do something, and then maybe on a turn or two just strip some cover, or, just get some shots down. I don't hate it. Then, Wing Tyranid Prime. Of course, we got to talk about the Wing Tyranid Prime. I know that you can still be talking, and we're going to drop Vanguard Onslaught. I know you still could flirt with the idea of the Neuro Tyrant being attached to some warriors. Um, you can flirt with this idea. I think I'd still. I think I'm still of the opinion if I were to go for this, I would put it on a squad of ranged warriors. That way, 5 up invuln on them, T5. And it's cheaper than bringing Zoes. And Zoes might not live. And there's the OC. And then, there's some things that you can do in here. If you want to do that, I don't think I'm terribly against it. But I don't think it's too beneficial on the melee warriors too much. Now, I should say that you would get a flamer out of it, so that if somebody does come to challenge your Neuro Tyrant and Warrior break, you can at least overwatch the problem a little bit away. However, it comes with the fact that you're going to really want the movement for warriors to remain infantry and not have to worry about a monster that has to go around terrain. So I'd say the Neuro Tyrant attached to ranged warriors to do all the things. At least that way you're not like, well, I have to go through this terrain to stage for the melee aspect of the game. I think you're better off just trying to fire down the shots down long. So there's that. Now, hyper adapted Raveners, right? Oh, and I should say Wing Tyranid Prime just in the fact that you're bringing them. Sustained hit 1 for the units. Unfortunately, they still haven't made it so that this gets battle line in the detachment. I wish that they would, but we'll just live and let learn. But yeah, 65 points, sustained hit 1 to give them reroll hit rolls, to give them sustained hit 1 on a unit that has reroll hit rolls of 1 and twin link will help out, especially taking down some of these things. And then they have damage to themselves. So, but to the hyper adapted Raveners, I don't think this is a unit that can save this detachment, unfortunately. I do think at least one unit might be helpful, though. Why do I think that? Because it is still a character unit, and it has Hypersensory Aura. Once per battle round, you can target this unit with Rapid Ingress or Heroic Intervention for free, and can do, or so far, sorry, for 0 command points, let's be technical, and can do so even if somebody already targeted a unit with that stratagem this turn. So, I do think there's some power here to, yes, you no longer have cheap Raveners to go do a thing and then uppy downy somewhere else, but you do have a dangerous Ravener unit that can now be put in places to help you play the game. So, hyper adapted Raveners do have a flamer that has assault, ignores cover, and like I said, it's a flamer, so torrent. 12 inches, d6 plus 3, 6, 1, 1. What if it had, I don't know, advance and charge? Now, again, this is expensive. This takes this unit to, with regular Raveners attached to, 290 points plus another 30, 320 points. That is a lot for a break. However, just to play a little bit of advocacy for it, you can have reroll wound rolls of 1 for the flamer, and you also can increase that flamer to strength 8 AP1 damage 1 with spontaneous hypercorrosion. So, there's something there on top of the fact that you could give it advance and charge, so that it can now advance, shoot, and charge with the flamer that possibly either is re-rolling the wound roll of 1, or 811, and if you have the command points and you really want to do it, both of them. It already has ignore cover, so you don't have to worry about this part. And the other two are Tyranid warrior specific. But I do think one unit of hyper-adapted Raveners with Raveners could be helpful. Also has anti-monster 5 up and anti-vehicle 5 up. We know this. Twin linked. Rapid ingressing, right? And now making the, let's say, Forge Fiend a little bit scared, a little bit worried, a little bit concerned, means that they're not going to be shooting your warriors that are then going to come up and beat some ass. If they get the job done and kill the Forge Fiend, Kalu Kalay, we save the day. If not, it was enough of a concern. Also has heroic intervention. No fights first, but it should be said that maybe you might also just need to bust out your warriors from a threat that they might be a little bit tied up on. Could help with that, just getting extra damage through. I do think at least one unit of hyper adapted Raveners, especially if you make it so that they can advance and charge, might have play in this detachment. I think it might have play in this detachment. If this detachment has insane amounts to play, remains to be seen, and I wouldn't go that far in it, but I do think it has more play than before, just to say that again. But going past that, the Psychophage. There's been a lot of questions about the Psychophage and a lot of determining its worth. So, it has, for 110 points, 5 of Feel No Pain, access to Smoke, T9, 3 of Save, 10 wounds, has a Torrent that's whatever, has melee that's kind of whatever too. But the main thing about this thing now is that it has Biostimulus. In your shooting phase after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the turn, each time a friendly Tyranid unit makes a melee attack that targets that enemy unit, improve the AP characteristic of that attack by one, can't layer it, right? Can't stack it, I should say. So, the Psychophage also now has 12 inches of movement. Remember when I said you need something to go out there until you get there? I'm not saying that the Psychophage is amazing for it, but if I were now looking for a cheaper distraction Carnifex, it is 110 points, right? If I am looking for a unit to go out there, absorb attacks, and possibly on its last legs boost AP where I might need it, that'd be fine. So the Psychophage, 5 of Feel No Pain and Smoke. Again, I don't think I necessarily love that I have less command points to pop smoke willy-nilly. But the 5 of Feel No Pain itself should absorb some amount of damage and get a shot off or two, so that maybe a melee warrior squad can go up to AP3 that does put knights on 6s. Of course, they could rotate Ion Shields. Actually, I think rotate Ion Shields is just range, right? Actually, can't remember right now. Not that important. But that will put that AP3 for some of those units will be handy. For knights that now you're wounding on 5s, right? You're probably just going to be wounding on 5s. Each AP through a fuck ton of attacks, putting them on 6s will really help. Now, for some of the Death Guard units, yeah, there might be an invuln or two in there. Also, same thing though. For the ones that don't have it, that were just going to be a bastard to lift anyway, AP3 looks pretty nice. But it doesn't stop there, because my other grievance with this, the Psychophage, is, well, I don't want to bring 110 points just to affect one unit. I want it to affect multiple units so that it feels like I'm really getting 110 points worth, instead of just, oh, I could have just brought another unit of warriors. Now, you couldn't have done that because they're too expensive, but this again, going to the point cost of the Psychophage now, in its favor, a buffing unit should not cost more than taking another equivalent unit, or freeing up enough points to start working towards that, right? So, with the Psychophage being able to boost the AP of things that might like it, such as melee warriors, it also can buff the AP and melee. Again, just I see that get confused a bit. For some other things, notably, Also, Hormigons. I've said this many times. I like the AP boost on Hormigons when they can get lethal hits, either Assimilation Swarm or Invasion Fleet. They also have Advance and Charge at 10 inches of movement. Now, if you bring a fuck ton of Hormigons to tie things up and boost AP into a target, because now you're moving fast between Hormigons and Psychophages, things might actually take a lot more wounds than they expected to. And when they take more wounds, they're taking more damage. But also, the Hormigons being endless multitude means that if they do try to lift your warriors while being around your endless multitude, instead of just lifting the Hormigons, which they probably should try, and this gives them a weird 50-50, you can do the strength greater than toughness -1 to wound to keep your warriors in the game a little bit longer, right? So if they focus on Hormigons, you go, well, fuck it, they were just Hormigons, right? They, didn't get the AP into them, right? Your opponent was like, I can't let 60 attacks of AP2 fall into me. I'd rather not do that, right? But now they have to worry about the warriors that are coming through with maybe 60 attacks AP2. Uh, because of the Psychophage that came through, absorbed some shots, maybe, maybe not, right? You are missing the 6 of Feel No Pain that you would have been able to do this previously. So, again, you still want to keep some durability aspect to Warrior Bioform Onslaught because, yeah, they have a 5 of Info, won't save you enough. Something else that might be helpful, Venom Thropes. People have brought them before, this isn't new. Venom Thropes have stealth themselves, but they also have foul spores. While a friendly Tyranid unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a ranged attack targets that unit, they get the benefit of cover. In addition, while a friendly Tyranid unit that isn't a monster is within 6 inches of this unit, they have stealth. So, giving Hormigons, warriors with the 5 up invuln, stealth, and benefit of cover keeps them in the game, and the Psychophage putting bonus AP on these attacks that are going to get to their target now. But also, another lovely thing that I admittedly was going to do something stupid with Toxic Green and Venom Thropes and the Psychophage. You see where I'm going here. Venom Thropes have anti-infantry 2 up. Now, they no longer have the Malanthropes to lead them to victory, to get Lance or Sustained or whatever. I think it was lethal, right? But they do still have 5 attacks per model with anti-infantry 2 up. Rerolling wound rolls of 1. 5 attacks hitting on 3s, strength 3, so fuck that, but AP 1, damage 1. If you can reroll wound rolls of 1 for anti-infantry 2 up that has a bonus AP going into it with 6 inches of movement for 70 points, a couple of times over, you can now lift the other bullshit that is infantry, i.e., looking at things like Marnius Calgar, Vector's Honest Guard, looking at Death Guard bullshit, looking at Wrath of the Rock, Dark Angels bullshit. Now, each Venom Thrope has a max of 5 damage on it, that's true, right? But between all of this shit, some things should start to get hit. And if things get hit, they eventually go down. Hopefully. Probably. Maybe. They eventually go down. So, weirdly enough, I think that if you were ever really passionate about Warrior Bioform Onslaught, I know that there's Subterranean Assault now, but I think while people are working off the kinks of Subterranean Assault, there might be just enough now that has changed to bring Warrior Bioform Onslaught into being something worth exploring for the time being. So, I can be nice about it, I guess. Hey. If you liked the video, like it. Got a comment from me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.